Hi, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Oline and I'm a knitter from Norway. And welcome to my knitting podcast. Thank you for hanging out with me. Today I'm just going to talk about all things knitting related, my finished project, my whips, what I'm wearing, my knitting plans, and yeah, just all things knitting related. This is the knitting podcast for September. This is all about what I've been knitting on in September. But I thought I'd just start off by talking about what I'm wearing. And I'm wearing my one ego knit project finished in September, and currently keeping on track with finishing one ego project each month. This is, if you can't tell, this is the Eva Cardigan by Petiteknit, one of her newest patterns. I saw that pattern and I just fell in love with it. I love the very simple look this has. It's just a basic cardigan with a bit of positive ease, and I really love the double knitted button band. But it's just a very plain cardigan, to be honest. But what really sold me on this cardigan and me knitting on this instead of just any other basic cardigan is this detail here on the button band. You cast off using just stockinette stitches instead of casting off in rib like you do on the sleeves. You cast off just using stockinette stitches, which gives it a really nice finish, and I really liked that detail. And I also liked the cardigan, but that was like the one thing that really set it apart from others. I also really enjoy the shoulder detail. Let's see if I can pick it up here. I like the shoulder on this, and also this whole area here. I know Petiteknit has a few other patterns with similar shoulder shaping. I think the Lyon sweater has quite a similar shoulder, and I've been wanting to try that construction since the Lyon sweater, but I haven't gotten around to it. But I really enjoyed working it up with this cardigan. The one thing about it though is I brought this cardigan around with me when I was at my parents' house, if I just were out and about with my son, and if I got in any knitting time I would knit on this, and that definitely made for a lot of mistakes around this shoulder area and the increases for the V-neck and everything, because I'm not very good at reading patterns. I have way too much faith in myself and me just intuitively understanding based on nothing. So I just think, okay, it's time to do increases, I'll just do some increases, and then a lot of the time it's not right. And then on top of that, I was doing the increases on this while I was around being social, so I was not paying attention and haven't read the instructions, so I ripped back a lot of times when doing the increases for this. But when I finally understood I have to sit down and actually read the instructions, it went by, it was no problem. It isn't a difficult pattern, it's just me being stupid. But once I read that, it was smooth sailing and just knitting away on this. It was, as always, amazing to separate for the sleeves and get fewer stitches, especially since it's a cardigan and all the stitches you also have to do the purl side of them. So that's always my favorite part when making cardigans, to separate for the sleeves so I get fewer purl stitches, because I know for the arms they're knit in the round, so those are purely stockinette. Absolutely my favorite part. But I did think I was going to finish this a lot sooner than I did. I have to look in my trusted knitting bullet journal. I started this the 26th of August and I finished it the 10th of September, and that did go by quite quickly, but I thought since it's so basic and on 4mm needles, I thought it was going to go a bit faster. I thought I'd spend maybe a week, 10 days knitting it up, and it definitely took me a while longer. I think when I start project and think about how long they're going to take me, I'm still thinking I'm going to get as much knitting time as I did when my son was a baby or before he was born, and I don't know how I haven't caught up with me getting less knitting time in the last year, because he is now over 2 years old and he has been steadily stealing my knitting time for quite some time, but it just hasn't. I'm just not considering it when thinking about how long project is going to take me. So I definitely felt that on my motivation when knitting this one, because I thought it was going to go a lot quicker and it didn't. But it was also really nice to have this project for a while and just knit a few stitches here and there and really get to know the project. And I really liked working this up, and a part of that is that I got to try some brand new yarn. My original plan was to use yarn from my stash. I talked about that in my fall knitting plans video, but when I actually looked closely at the pattern, because I didn't do that before talking about it that time either, I realized that this pattern for my size, medium, would need 650 grams of yarn, and I only had 450 grams of yarn in my stash, so I had to get some other yarn. And since I felt like I just had to cast this on immediately, I was just obsessed with getting this cardigan. I went to my local yarn store, and they don't sell drops yarn, so I'm not there that often, because drops yarn is kind of the yarn that's in my price range, the yarn I can afford. But I decided for this cardigan that I would splurge a little bit, and I got Petiteknit, which is the yarn that you're supposed to use in the pattern. And I had thought before going into the yarn store that I would get the new dark blue color that Petiteknit has, the Petiteknit blue color. I think it's midnight blue or something. But then I also saw the marine blue, that's the basic marine blue, and I compared them to each other, and the marine blue just won out. It was a bit bluer, you could more clearly see it was blue. It wasn't so dark, it almost looked black as the Petiteknit color is. So I decided to go with the marine blue, and I'm very happy I did, because it's still a quite dark blue, but it's light enough that you can see some of the detailing a bit easier. And yeah, I'm such a blue girl. I love blue. Everything in my knitted wardrobe almost is blue, so I wanted something that looked blue from afar and from up close and couldn't be mistaken with black. So that's why I decided to go with this. And I was a bit on the fence if I was going to buy the Petiteknit, which is pricier, or if I was going to wait out and buy Drops Lima, but then having to order online. But I decided that I wanted to support my local yarn store. I really have been wanting to try out Petiteknit for a while, and I thought this would be a great project to do so. I also could not wait to cast on, and Petiteknit is also a Norwegian yarn. It's yarn from Norwegian sheep, so I also wanted to support the use of the Norwegian wool we have, because I really want us to continue using Norwegian wool, even though that is a bit more scratchy than merino wool. But yeah, that was my reasons for ending up with Petiteknit, and super happy I did. I finally got to try it out, and I get why it's so hyped up, at least here in Norway. Petiteknit has a bit of hype, and I get it. When I knit with it, I was a bit afraid, because when the knitting was in my lap, it was a bit scratchy against my thighs through jeans and leggings and everything. It was scratchy, the fibers of the wool poked through my pants. So I usually had to do a blanket over so it wouldn't scratch my legs, but in using both before and after blocking, that's not been a problem. So I think it was just because when you're knitting, it moves around a lot more than when you're wearing it. So I think that's why it was a bit scratchy, but I was a bit worried when knitting, and it was so scratchy against my thighs that how is this going to be when I'm wearing it, because I like to wear it with like tank tops or t-shirts, but not a problem at all. I also really like this yarn that it is 100% wool and it's not superwash, it's just wool, and that means that I could do my favorite method of merging two skeins together instead of just leaving 10 centimeters of the skein you've used up and then 10 centimeters of the skein you're starting and then having to weave in ends. I could do split splicing where you wet both of the ends and then felt them together. And that means that for all of the skeins I used, I didn't have to weave in any ends from me changing skeins. I just had to weave in the ends from starting the sleeves, casting on, casting off the button band. So I had way less ends to weave in, and it's like my favorite thing because I know when I'm in the process of felting and every time I change yarns I just think about this is 2 less ends that I have to change. So that's definitely something I think about a lot now when I choose yarns. I also know that there's other positive sides to choosing natural yarn without superwash, but I think the biggest reasons for me is that that means less ends to weave in. So hopefully I'm going to be able to work with Petiteknit again, but I don't think it's going to be a common occurrence because it is a bit pricey for me, but really happy I got to try it with this. This cardigan weighs 630 grams. I think the pattern called for 650 grams of Petiteknit, but I was afraid I wouldn't have enough yarn to finish it, and so I ended up buying 14 skeins, 700 grams. So now I'm left with 70 grams of Petiteknit I don't really know what to do with. So if you have any suggestions at all of what to do with 70 grams, like a skein and a half of Petiteknit, please leave them for me in the comments. I would like any tips or suggestions. I have tried to think a bit myself what to do with it, and the only thing I can think about is a hipster hat for my son, but he already has 3 of them. He doesn't need any more. He can barely use all of the ones he has now. And I know I can also make a hipster hat and then gift it away to one of our friends with kids at the same age, but I'm knitting so many gifts at the moment that I just really want a project I knit to stay in the family, a bit selfishly, but I would really like some tips on what to do with that. Either for myself or my son or my fiance or just something, but I would like to be able to keep it myself. So any suggestions, please let me know. Other things about this cardigan, I also got buttons. I got buttons for this when we were on a trip to visit a friend of mine. She has kids the same age as my son and then another kid that's younger. But yeah, we were visiting them and she's also a knitter, so she knew about her local yarn store. And I needed buttons for this because I don't keep that many buttons at home, and especially not these large ones because I don't really like to button up my cardigans for myself. But the first time I tried this on after it was finished, I realized that this one needed buttons. Just the fit of this I would prefer to wear with buttons, so I had to get buttons. So we visited her local yarn store so I could look at some yarn there and just see how her local yarn store is. And I also found these buttons. I like them a lot. They are like, from afar they look quite plain, but as you can see they are I don't know what you call it, but they have some detailing. And I also knew going into that yarn store that I wanted buttons. I wanted quite big buttons, so to fill out the whole button band. I thought it would look quite silly with like a small button when the button band is so wide. So that was one of my criteria. And I also wanted a big contrast. I wanted the button to be quite a stark contrast to the darker sweater, because I thought that would look good. So I bought these 4 buttons, and then I also bought 4 more buttons because I am planning to use the yarn in my stash. That was it was too little to make one for myself, but I'm planning to make one for my son using the yarn I had in my stash, because that yarn has been in my stash for so long, so I'm ready to get rid of it. And just wait a second, I'm going to grab it. As you can see, it's quite it almost blends into my cardigan. It's quite a similar color to what I ended up choosing. So I think this, with the same buttons as I have, is going to be such a nice match. But I am a bit worried that since I have 450 grams, that I'm going to be making it in a huge size and he won't be able to wear it for a couple of years. That's the only downside. But I also could make it in a smaller size, but then I would be left with even more leftover yarn, and I don't want that. So, but I'm really excited to cast on the Eva Cardigan Junior for my son and us to match. I'm also really excited about it because when I finished my Eva cardigan for me, he was with me when I was weaving in the ends, and when I was finished weaving in the ends, he grabbed it from my lap and then put it on himself, and then just ran through the house with this on, and it looked like a dress on him, but he was so happy with it. He would not take it off. And then also when I got the buttons, before I sewed them on, he would always go around with the button in his hand because he just thought they were so pretty. And now when I'm wearing this too, he will grab onto the button the furthest down because that's what he can reach, and then he will just go around holding that button. So the fact that he liked the cardigan and he likes the buttons so much just makes me want to knit him up one immediately, just put all other plans out of the way and knit him up one. So I'm really hoping to be able to cast on for his cardigan this coming week, and that's also why I want to make it in a size that he can fit soon. I don't mind if it's a bit big on him, but if I make it in a size 10 years, he won't be able to wear it for years. So I'll have to look at the pattern and see how much yarn each of the sizes need, because I have 450 and I would ideally like to get rid of it all. Another fun, or maybe not so fun thing about this cardigan is that when I was going to knit up the button band, I wanted to knit up the button band before the arms, the sleeves, because I wanted to try it on while knitting up the sleeves, and I thought I would get a more accurate try on if I had the button band to how it would fit, so I could see how long I wanted the sleeves. And I'm also super impatient, so when I was going to knit up the button band, I had to pick up stitches, and you were supposed to do that using a 3.5mm needle, and the only 3.5mm needle I have that's circular is 40 centimeters, and the pattern suggested 100 centimeters, so I realized 40 centimeters is just going to be too short. As you can see, I was going to pick up stitches from down here and then all the way around and then back down, so 40 centimeters just wouldn't do. So I asked my mom and my grandma, they live 5 kilometers away, so really no distance at all, and they live right next to each other. I asked them if either of them had either 80 or 100 centimeter needle, and my grandma did, and she said I could borrow it, but I couldn't go there to borrow it before after my son was asleep, and then it was dark outside. But I drove there and got the needle. Luckily, I was very happy about that I would be able to knit the button band that same evening. but on the way back from my grandma, it was completely dark out. The only thing you can see was because the car headlights were lighting up the road, but on my way back home, like a kilometer from where my grandma lives, a moose ran into the side of my car. Luckily not the side I was on, but the passenger side. It just kind of came out from nowhere. It was at the side of the road, and since the bushes on the side of the road were quite high and it was dark, I didn't see it until it was like in the passenger door, so it ripped out the rear view side mirror and left quite a big dent on the passenger door. Luckily both me and the moose were okay, but definitely maybe taught me a lesson on not being so impatient. I could have waited until the next day. We have a lot of moose out here, so when driving in the night, that is a very real possibility that either the moose crash into you or you crash into a moose. Luckily it crashed into me and I didn't hit it front on, but it's not a pleasant experience to be hit by an animal or hit an animal, so I was a bit shaken up, but that adrenaline also led me to being able to finish this button band that night, and I think I will forever remember knitting up this cardigan and this button band because of that, because I don't know if getting a needle that same day is worth getting hit by a moose on the way home, but that's how that went, and hopefully I won't repeat that mistake again. But yeah, luckily everything went well with everyone involved in the accident, and luckily my son was not with me in the car because he sits on that side of the car. But yeah, definitely going to remember knitting this cardigan up forever because of that. But that's all about what I'm wearing and my first project in September, and then we can move on to my other finished project, or maybe we'll do my whips first actually. Here are my current whips, and for a girl who was a monogamous knitter just months ago, this is a lot, but we'll just have to start somewhere. I don't know, we can start with the smallest project. This is one of my active projects. It's not very active, but I have started it, so we'll call it an active project. This is the string, the I-cord string for Olive's Thights by Knitting for Olive. I've just done the string and that's it. This is going to be for one of the tights in the smallest size, and I'm knitting it up using Drops Baby Merino in the color Sage Green. The reason this is started on and is only this small is because if you watched my recent podcast, I'm knitting up a gift for twins, and I'm knitting up this Olive's Thights. Here's another active project. And I was making the string for this one because this is my main active project for the twins, and I wanted the string to be the same length. So before knitting down this edge on these tights and encapsulating this string, I cast on this string so I could measure them next to each other to make sure they were the same length, and that's why I have this string and really haven't gotten any more progress on this project, because this is kind of what I'm mainly working on, and then I'm just gonna copy that with this one when I'm finished. So this is just, hopefully it's going to turn into a more active project in this upcoming week when I finish this, but I have started it, so I'm counting it. But that's all on that. Here you can see more of the actual tights, because here I have gotten started on the tights. I am almost to the point now where I'm going to do some increases for the groin and then separating the 2 feet. I have done the German short rows in the back here. You can barely see them here. And then I've done increases to make room for the butt. And now I think I am at the place, I'm going to measure it again after this, but I think I am at the place where I'm supposed to do increases before splitting for the legs. Yeah, what did I think about? Yeah, this pattern, it originally calls for knitting up this I-cord string and sewing down your sewing down the edge where you cast on, but I want to do as little sewing on a project as possible. I don't like to weave in ends, I don't like to sew, I don't like to do any of that. And I don't really mind knitting down, and I think that also gives a more elastic and pretty looking finish. So what I do is I always knit up the I-cord cord first, and then I knit that down before continuing on with the tights. And I've done that for every single one of the olives tights I've made from the very first time, because I just don't understand why you wouldn't. So that's my tips if you are ever to make olives tights. Knit down the edge instead of sewing it down. It makes it a lot more elastic, and I think it's easier, and it is very seamless. As you can see here, it just looks like another one of the purl rows. So I would definitely advise you to do that. I am almost running out of the first skein for this one, so I think that's why this been paused, because I haven't really worked on this for the past few days, but I don't have that much left now when separating for the feet. The feet in the smallest size, 1 to 3 months, they aren't very long and few stitches, so I think this is going to go by quite quickly once I just sit down with this and focus on it. This is going to be part of a set with the olives wrap, but more on them later because they are finished. But yeah, here are the tights so far. This is in the petroleum color. It's also drops baby merino. And then we'll just move into my most active project, and that is this big boy. It's the zipper sweater man. I don't know if I can show this all in frame. That's the whole body, and then these are the sleeves. This has just gotten very big in the last few days. This is going to be a birthday gift for my father. His birthday is in November, so pleased to say that I don't have to stress with this. It's going to be done in good time before his birthday. I have knit this. This is knit up in drops Nepal, and I think it's the 4th time I'm knitting up a zipper sweater in drops Nepal, and I can definitely recommend knitting it up in Nepal. I think it makes for the perfect zipper sweater. And the zipper sweater I made myself, I've not made in drops Nepal, and I regret it very often. But this is in drops Nepal, and if you look at the color, it's just a lovely color. It's the orange color by drops Nepal, and I'm so jealous at my father for getting this, and I think he definitely made a very wise choice when choosing color. And I tried it on just as I'd started the first sleeve, and oh, I can't get over how nice it is, and I'm just super jealous of him for getting this, and he better be grateful. If not, I'm taking it back for myself, because it's so beautiful. I can just sit and stare at it and be almost jealous that he's going to get this. I have just followed the pattern on this. The only thing is I've knit the sleeves longer. After the last increase, I've just done a couple more centimeters than the pattern asks for. I had my father try on the zipper sweater I made my fiance, both the light one and the regular one, to see which version he would like, and he would like the regular one, and he was very happy with the fit. The only thing is that he wanted longer arms and longer body, so that's what I'm doing with this. I've been measuring my fiance's zipper sweater and then just counting the rows I did on that, and then adding more rows for this one, and the arms are super long and the body is about to be super long as well. My fiance's zipper sweater I used 705 grams for, and since I'm doing a longer version for this one, I bought 850. I think that's definitely going to be more than I need, but I'm always super afraid to have gotten too little and then have to buy more yarn and it being a different dye lot. So I just always buy more yarn than I need. The only problem with it is I end up with a lot of scrap yarn, and then I have to figure out what to do with that. So also, if you have any tips on what to do with probably, I'd say 2 skeins of drops Nepal, please let me know. Write it in the comments if you have any suggestions on what to do with 100 grams of drops Nepal in this lovely color. I would love something for myself because I love this color. Yeah, another thing I did with this zipper sweater that I haven't done with any of the other zipper sweaters I've knit. This is my 6th zipper sweater ever, and usually after finishing a zipper sweater I say to myself and everyone around me that's been near me while knitting the zipper sweater that I'm never going to knit a zipper sweater again. I really enjoy the process of knitting it up. I think it's a really nice pattern, and I like knitting on 5mm needles. I think it's a blast really to knit it up, but my big issue with this is that every time I separate for the sleeves on this one, which is usually my favorite part of the project, on every project, but on this one especially because that's also when you join in the round, so you don't have to do purl stitches anymore and you get less stitches, so it's like, it's amazing. But every time I do that on the zipper sweater, I just start worrying about having to sew in this zipper sometime soon, because I know for myself that the body and sleeves usually go by quite quickly, so I know that like in a week's time I'll have to sew in the zipper, and that kind of ruins the rest of the knitting experience for me, because I'm just, every time I make process I'm just like, ugh! Now I soon have to make knit and do the zipper. So this time I decided that I wasn't going to let the zipper ruin this experience for me. So when I separated for the sleeves and joined in the round, I just knit like this much after the arms just to be able to do the zipper. And then I decided to just do the zipper and get it out of the way. And that is the best decision I've ever made. First of all, I can now enjoy the process of knitting up the sleeves, knitting up the body, and also it looks way more real when the zipper is in, so I can like actually enjoy how it's going to look for a lot longer of the process. And also it made it a lot easier for me to actually sew in the zipper, because usually I spend so much time overthinking it and worrying about it, then when I'm actually doing the zipper, I've just overthink it too much, so it makes it really hard for me. But now I just did it and tried to think as little as possible about it, to be honest. And then it went by a lot quicker. I did it while watching a movie, and I didn't even get angry this time. Usually I get very angry and just hate the whole process, hate the fact that I'm making a zipper sweater, hate everything about it. But this time the experience was a lot more pleasant. So this is the first time making a zipper sweater. I don't mind the thought of casting on another one, and I have been wanting a zipper sweater like this whole year, and the thought of making that got a lot less scary when I figured out that if you just do the zipper as soon as you can, the experience is a lot more pleasant. So now I'm just going to have a good time really finishing the body. I think I have maybe 8 to 10 centimeters to go before doing the ribbing and then Italian bind off, and then this is done, apart from all the ends that needs to be weaved in. But another great thing about Drops Nepal is that this is a drops yarn that's not superwashed. It's wool and alpaca blend. I think it's 65% wool and 35% alpaca without superwash, so I can also split splice this, and that's been especially great with this large a sweater because I'm going to end up using like 15 skeins, so that would be 30 ends just to weave in because of changing skeins. So being able to felt the ends together is a blessing, not even in disguise, it's just a blessing. I'm so happy I figured out how to do that, and when making zipper sweaters from now on, that's definitely going to be one of the criteria on how I choose yarn. But yeah, this is my main project and really excited to be done with it. And then I have one last project, but this is, I don't know if you can even call this an active project, and that's this one. And it's active because I have swatched for it. If you can see, this is going to be the Moby sweater. I've had yarn for this for so long, but I haven't really gotten myself to cast on for it yet because I've been a bit intimidated both by the cables and especially by this crisscross pattern here. I've done the crisscross and cables before, and cables are okay. I just struggle a bit with remembering to keep track of my rows and do them every so often, but I've also done the crisscross before and I don't really enjoy doing that, so a whole sweater with the crisscross panel in front has seemed really intimidating. But I also know that I really want the Moby sweater and I have the yarn. So when someone reached out to me on Instagram and asked if I wanted to be a part of a knit along for the Moby sweater, my answer was immediately yes, because I needed kind of that kick in the butt to just get started. And I made this swatch the other evening and I'm so excited about it. I think this is going to be amazing, and just a white Moby sweater is going to be so dreamy. So this is what I hope to cast on when I'm finished with the zipper sweater. I'm trying to keep to one big project at a time and then 1 or 2 smaller ones, but also I really want to cast on the Eva Cardigan for my son, and that's going to be in such big a size that that's also going to be a big project. So I might have to bend the rules a bit for this because I also really want to cast on the Moby sweater. My dream is really to be able to cast it on this Saturday, because that would be like my weekend reward. So yeah, hopefully I'm going to be able to cast this on. I have a lot of plans for the next week it seems, but this would be a dream to get started on. Oh, just look, and I don't know if you can see the halo as well. This is Drops Charisma in the color Off-White. It's Drops Charisma in the color Off-White coupled with Drops Kid Silk in the color Off-White, and I'm really excited. But those are all of my active or semi-active projects, and now we can move into my finished projects. Before we get into specifically my finished items for the week, I just wanted to say or kind of ask about, I have been thinking, I do knit quite a lot each month, so I have been thinking about maybe doing these kind of podcasts a lot more often, because I feel like now they very easily end up me just being like, I made this, I made this, I made this, whereas I maybe want the podcast to be more like you can see the progress. So if I do it a bit more often, you can see me kind of progressing on the projects from time to time, whereas now I just show up and say, look at all I've cast on and cast off during the last month, and that's also fine, but I kind of want to memorialize, I think is the word for it, a bit more of the process of my knits. I think that would be really nice to be able to do. So please let me know in the comments what you think about me maybe doing this kind of podcast a lot more often than once a month. But that said, let's move into all of the projects for this month. First off, we have a Sophie scarf, maybe not so easy to see because it is in black, but this is a Sophie scarf. The Sophie scarf is by Petiteknit. As you can see, this is quite a small one, even though I knit it in the size large actually, but I am nowhere near gauge, I'm pretty sure. I knit this with a single strand of drops flora because my friend, who this is a gift for, wanted a Sophie scarf in black, and that's the black I have, and I don't have any black mohair, I don't have any other black. So this is in a single strand of drops flora, and this is only 19 grams, so it's very, very, very light, but it is a bit small, but as you can see, you can stretch it, so maybe I'm going to block this a bit out. But my friend said she wanted it to be like a accessory, like a headband or something, so I think it's going to be fine that it's a bit small, but it is definitely a bit short if you want to tie it around your neck or something. You can barely get back. So, but made this, it was a magnificent scrap yarn project, because you can use, it's a perfect pattern, you can use any kind of yarn and it just works out. It gets either smaller or bigger depending on what yarn you use, but it still is a Sophie scarf and it works out, and you can get rid of some of those smaller scraps of yarn, just 19 grams for this one. So really pleased with that. This is a birthday gift for my friend, and I actually knit it on her birthday. She doesn't live here anymore, she has moved away, so I don't see her that often, but next time I see her I have her gift, and if I didn't get to see her on her birthday, at least I knit her birthday gift. So this was actually knit all in one day. That's also the other brilliant thing with the Sophie scarf. Even though I knit it in the large size, it was all done in just one day. So I would recommend this if you just want something quick and easy, because it's also garter stitch with just I-cord edges, so it's a really fun and easy project as well, and it's quite mindless once you get into it, just with increases and decreases. I really like the Sophie scarf, and making this I'm kind of tempted to make another one, and I'm also tempted to make another Sophie shawl. Since we are in fall, Sophie shawl might be more fitting than a Sophie scarf. But that's the first finished project, and then I have the only project I made for my son this month. He has really not been getting a lot of knits this year. I feel like this year has been all about gift knitting. All of my friends just keep getting pregnant. I feel like someone I know has been pregnant all the time. There's someone new popping up, and I think it's really fun to knit gifts, and especially for babies, so I just keep knitting gifts all the time. So my son has definitely been suffering under that. I wouldn't say suffering because he has a lot of knits, but I realized when packing down his 1-year wardrobe and up his 2-year that he has so many sweaters. I don't even know how he got that many sweaters. I know I knit most of them myself, but it was so many. I'm blown away. I can show you. But I also noticed he has like no pants. Maybe he has 1 pair of pants. So I had to knit him a pair of pants, and I chose the chunky rib pants. We had this in the size 1 to 2 years, and my fiance really liked it because this is not the overall. It doesn't have any buttons, it doesn't have any straps. It's just you pull it up and then you're good to go. So my fiance actually requested this pair of pants because he didn't know the pattern name, but he said he wanted something like the one we had before. And when my fiance actually cares enough about knitting to ask for specific things, I'm not hard to ask, so I cast it on the same day. This is in the size 2 to 3 years, but even though it is quite a large size to knit pants in, this went so quickly. I really enjoy 2x2 ribbing when it's on 4mm. I just feel like the project flies by. Here I have knit down an elastic in the waistband so it stays up without any buttons or anything. This is knit in 2 strands of Drops Baby Merino. I would maybe have preferred to knit it in Drops Merino Extra Fine, but I don't have that, and as you can see I have a lot of Drops Baby Merino, and I am trying to knit from stash. I'm trying to decrease this stash by New Year's to at least under 10 kilos. It's not going great. As you have heard this video, I've bought yarn for this, I bought yarn for the zipper sweater. It's not going in the direction it should, but at least this helped. This was 224 grams of stash yarn, and I'm really happy with the color. This color is just dark brown. It will go with almost everything, and I have folded up the bottom ribbing on the legs, but it has a section here with single ribbing, but I like to fold that up. But it's really nice because when the child grows, the pant grows with them, because you can just fold down this. And also when the child grows, since it's ribbing, the pants also grow with them. So I really enjoy that with the last pair we had. So really excited to weave in, not excited to weave in the ends, but excited for it to be done so we can start using this. And since casting this on, I've actually looked a bit into what I've been knitting my son this year, and I've not been knitting him a lot, and the things I have been knitting him has been sweaters, which a bit stupid since he has so many. But I am going to focus in the next few months, because we are rapidly heading into winter and really cold weather. I'm going to be focusing on knitting him socks and gloves, and not really that many hats because he has quite a few, but pants, and just all of those super fun things. But this was the first project, and this was actually very fun, so maybe he will get another pair of this, because now that he's 2 years old, he is very messy, very chaotic. We have to wash a lot of clothes, a lot more frequent than when he was a baby. So now we kind of need more of everything because it gets dirty so fast and we can't really keep track with washing. But that's yeah, I'm hoping to knit more for my son, but as you heard earlier in this video, I talked about the cardigan, so I'm clearly not really getting the memo. But yeah, we'll see. Hopefully I will knit him pants and socks and gloves, and not just cardigans and sweaters. But speaking about cardigans and sweaters, here I have two super cute cardigans. They are for twins, for the same twins that I talked about the Olives tights for. These are the matching Olives wraps. These are knit in the size 3 month, and this is in the Drops Baby Merino Patrol, and this is in the Sage Green. I guess I can just, it's a wrap top. I can just open it up here and show. Here I have knit I-cord strings. None of the ends are weaved in, so it's a bit of a mess, but I've made this I-cord strings to close the jacket, and then you can open it. And on this side I've had help from my sister to do crochet edge. Let's see, a crochet edge with these holes, and then there are buttons on the other side so you can wrap it up, but I didn't want to have strings on the inside because I felt that would be a bit too bulky for a baby. And I'm not going to take credit for that idea myself because I knit this one when I was visiting my friend, and she has also knit a couple of this top before, and I saw on one of her versions that she had done a crocheted edge and then done buttons. Here you can see them buttoned up. So I actually asked her when we were there, because I finished this while we were there, I asked her, can you please help me do it? I thought her solution for it was very, very clever and it looked very good, so I asked her if she could do it for me, and then I worked as hard as I could to finish this also while we were there. But I unfortunately was unsuccessful doing that. But luckily for me, my sister is quite good at crochet, so she helped me do the crochet edge, and then I gave her the other one and told her, please copy this. And then I sewed in the buttons on this one. It's not my favorite thing to do, but I feel very lucky to just have had to do it on the bun at least, and having gotten help on this one. And I'm also very pleased to have gotten the tips to do it like this, because I think it's a really good idea and it's a lot less bulky. If you were to also have these strings on the inside, I feel it would be very bulky on the inside. And I think you might see this in the pattern too, the buttons, but my friend also did a third button on her, so we did that on mine too, just because when you wrap it up, if you don't have that third button, it very easily becomes like this, not very even. So if you button it up, it becomes a lot more even and prettier, but I also think more comfortable to wear. So I'm super happy with this too. And going into this, I have knit quite a few of the Olives wrap before, but I remembered it being way more tiring and challenging because it's all knit back and forth, so there's a lot of purl stitches, and it's also worked bottom up, which means it's a bit of hassle to connect the sleeves, and definitely reminded me why I like top down so much. Bottom up is just not for me. But also, this was not as bad as I remembered it. It was way easier than I remembered it. I remembered it just being a marathon of purl stitches and never ending and just straight up not a good time. But even though I made 2, so I was like, oh my god, I'm going to die, I made 2 within like a week, and it wasn't really bad. I quite enjoyed knitting it actually, so I think I just talked this pattern down in my head, or maybe I've just gotten better at purl stitches or like them more now, but I definitely thought this was worse going into it than it actually ended up being, and I kind of hope that's the case for the Moby sweater as well, that I'm more worried about it than it's actually going to be. Let's see, I actually made 2 more projects this month, but I've forgotten to bring them here, so I'm just going to go get them. Here are the last 2 things that I made, and I forgot these because these I've weaved in the ends, and these have also been washed, so that these are already tucked away in my gift drawer, and that makes it a lot harder to remember that I also made this month. But these are part of a bigger set. I'll show the picture of the whole set here. These are also part of the twin gift that I am making, and I've gotten quite far on the twin gift now actually. But for that whole set I had 1 beanie and 1 romper to go when I started this month. What did I say? Beanie, I meant bonnet. The bonnet was quite easy. This took me about a day and not that much hassle or mind work to do, so this was quite an easy cast on, cast off. Didn't really think about it. It has a really nice patterning on it, but this was the second bonnet I made, and I've already made a romper and 2 jackets when casting on this, so didn't really have to think a lot about it. And the only thing I'm a bit nervous to see is how good this is in use, because usually when I make hats I prefer to have an I-cord here for when an I-cord for this part, for where you tie it under the neck, but this pattern called for this garter stitch one, and I get why, because that matches this whole part going down here, but I'm a bit worried, nervous, excited, I don't know what's the appropriate word for it, to see how it is in use, if it is as comfortable for the baby and the parents to like tie it up underneath. It is a bit more bulky than I feel an I-cord would have been, but it also fits the pattern better than an I-cord would, so I decided to go for it, but a bit excited to see how that will work out. And then I also have this romper. These are, so if you can see the size similarity to my hand, both the bonnet and the romper and this whole set is in the size premature. It's so small and cute and everything, but even though this is very small, this felt so daunting to me, because the increases you do here, first of all, it's not the same type of increase on the backside as on the front, so that's something you have to think about. And also doing increases when there is some sort of pattern, I think is I don't like it. It's a lot to think about and keep track of, and usually when I knit it's while watching my son run around, and at any given moment I have to be able to just throw the knitting away and run after him because he's trying to make a break for it or something. So knitting of this was a bit stressful. I had knit the other romper before, and that did not suit my worries because I felt like that was a lot to think about. But actually knitting this up, knitting the romper for the second time, I didn't feel it was as bad. The first time I struggled a bit with understanding how to do the increases here, and just felt it was quite hard to keep track of everything with this pattern. Didn't feel that way quite as much the second time knitting it up. And I also knit this up actually using just today. There are some positive sides with knitting up things in the size premature. So now the whole set is finished and it's a super cute set, and I just, for every time I finish something for this gift, I get more and more excited about gifting it away, and I really hope that the person's getting it like what they get. But these are the last two projects, or one of the first finished this last month, but the last ones to show you. These are knit in drops, baby merino in color light grey, and the designer is Little and Loop. The designer for the Olive's tights and wrap are knitting for Olive. And then the designer, oh my god, I forgot this whole time to tell you who the designer was. Embarrassing. The designer for this is Jord.Clothing. I think that's it. I'm so used to everything just being Petiteknit that I forgot to tell you when it wasn't. But yeah, this is so small and cute. I also think if they by chance are bigger than premature when they are born, these can also double as doll clothes, because most dolls made fit the size premature, so it won't really go to waste either way. But yeah, that's all I knit last month. I thought I'd talk a bit about plans with you, but I've talked about plans throughout this video really. The only other plan I have is that I'm really drooling over the new Drops yarn, Drops Daisy. As I've said, I'm trying to move away from superwash, and Drops Daisy is their new merino yarn that's not superwashed, so I really want that. And it's now quite cheap because it's like what's it called, lanseringstilbud, launching offer, I don't know. So I really want to get that. I've been looking at the color chart and I really fell in love with I don't know what any of this is in English, of course, but one of the green colors, I'll show you. I've been looking online at it, and also yarn for some pants for my son, and he needs pants, so that's one of my excuses to get it. I really want to try out the yarn, and I think this grey color in this yarn would be perfect for the zipper sweater light, which I've been wanting for a year. So, and also, as I said, I'm thinking about yarn that's not superwash when knitting a zipper sweater, so it's checking off a lot of boxes. So I might be buying Drops Daisy and maybe some other yarn. I maybe want superwash still when knitting pants for my son, because he gets wet and I don't want pants to felt. But I can just show you here what I'm thinking about maybe buying. But I do think buying Drops Daisy and being able to try that out and knit a zipper sweater with that would just be a dream. I also have been missing some green sweaters in my wardrobe because it's just blue. So I think I am like convincing myself to get this yarn, but the one thing kind of counting against it is my goal of getting under 10 kilos before New Year's. And I just keep getting new yarn every month. But I know with myself that the yarn I'm getting and the yarn in my stash is yarn I want to use. and I don't want to use it just to use it. I want to use it for the projects I actually want to use it for. But I am quite happy with my stash and my curated stash, that I only have yarns and colors in here that I actually like and want to use. I just haven't had the time or found the perfect project for it yet. All this to say, I am actively talking myself into buying Drops Daisy. Please don't convince me otherwise in the comments. Just tell me good things about it and tell me I should. But thank you if you watched this long into the video. It definitely got a lot longer than I originally thought this was going to get. If you watched for this long, tell me in the comments. If you like this video, please leave a like and a comment. It really means a lot for me when I see you leave a like or a comment. It makes my entire day when I get comments. Really, it's the only way I know if you liked what you saw or if you want me to continue. If not, it's just me sitting in my room babbling to myself like a crazy person. So I really appreciate it when you leave me comments. And also, if you want to see more from me, please subscribe. Bye!